Hello and welcome to Sports Talk. My name is Jamie Koepp and I'll be the host for today's show. Our guest is Chris Nicholson from the Janesville School District Athletics. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jamie. I appreciate it. It's nice to be here.
Happy to have you. How about a little personal background about yourself that you care to share with the viewers?
Well, born and raised in Beloit all my life. Married and divorced back in Beloit now, and worked for the School District of Janesville for going on 11 years now as the athletics assistant there. Also the commissioner of the Big 8 Conference. High school sports is my passion. Truly love everything that I do that relates to high school athletics.
How was sports always a big part growing up? Did you play a lot of sports as a kid?
Baseball, not so good.
Okay.
Football, played for Beloit Turner, 1988 state championship.
Okay.
Wrecked my knee that year, didn't get to play in the state championship, but football was my passion, still pretty much my passion.
Okay. And how about so as you went to adulthood, when did officiating start? Because I know officiating has probably been a pretty big, a respectable passion throughout your adulthood.
Oh, absolutely. That started shortly after I graduated from high school. I started umpiring. I was probably the world's worst softball umpire.
Okay.
Slow pitch softball.
Because of the 12-foot arc or what?
Yeah. Temperament.
Okay.
You know, good qualities of a good official. You know, is a thick skin at that time.
Oh, you're young and dumb too, though. You're young.
Young, ornery.
Yep.
Yeah, temperamental. But now it's a little different.
Okay.
25, 26 years later.
What are the favorite sports to officiate, and what have you officiated through the years?
I have officiated volleyball, football, basketball, baseball, and softball.
How did you learn volleyball?
Watched.
How about the subbing thing? How did you learn the subbing thing? The substitutions and the traveling, or the motion.
Studies. Good officials put their face in the rule books.
Mm-hmm.
Study hard, work hard at it. Mentoring with some very good officials.
Okay.
And pretending that I knew what I was doing too.
Understand that too. That's
Yes.
good. There's a little faking component. I get that. That's okay too.
Big faking.
I've noticed a lot of basketball officials, some football, but a lot of basketball have gone to volleyball. The football ones have gone to the climate control, being stationary, and the basketball ones kind of when your knees get shot, and it's still like an old two-man crew. It's a little easier on the body.
When I first started, we were doing basketball in a two-man crew, and you work some of those big girls or big boys games, beat your body up. You work pretty darn hard, and we've since gone to the three-man basketball crews,
Mm-hmm.
Four-man football crews too. You never had a back judge, and it beat your body up. And me, when I blow my ACL out, I'm, going to be 50 in February, need a knee replacement already.
Okay.
Because of the ACL,
Yep.
and now my good knee is bad as well. So, and I pounding and beating the garbage out of my knees.
Oh, for years,
too,
probably. And you think about like growing up in the sports and on the asphalt or the concrete or whatever, and then to the abuse we've put our bodies through athletics all the way through.
It's worth every minute of it.
Oh, I wouldn't change it for anything.
Nope.
So the conference commissioner in the Big 8.
That's correct.
When did that start, and how did it occur?
Good question.
I remember it has to be appropriate for it's a family show.
Yeah. Now, Eric Burton, fine conference commissioner, did a great job. He decided he was going to step down, and Ben McCormick, the AD at Craig, he was the president of the conference last school year.
Okay.
And he sent me the opening, and he kind of said, "Are you interested at all?" And I said, "Nope." And I just thought about it a little bit more, and I asked him, "Did we have any applicants?" And he said, "I have none that I've heard of." And I said, "Well, maybe I should throw my name in the hat." And well, the rabbit somebody pulled the rabbit's foot out of the hat, because interviewed, and I think that I was respected very well amongst the conference with all of the athletic directors in the Big 8 Conference. This was in late May, early June.
Zoom or in person?
Zoom. got hired over technology. That's
Okay.
correct. Yep.
You know, you think about that, and when we look at, like, I think the world of our commissioner and Mike McHugh right now in the Badger. I think
Great
so
guy.
highly of him for so many years of having done the various jobs, and I think anything that adds credibility to a conference like that and just a consistency. You know, you couldn't be the conference commissioner of the Big Eight if you still had the same temperament as a softball official at 19 or 20.
Yeah, no way.
You know, your skin has to grow pretty thick.
Yep.
And some of those things, and that sure shows the maturity piece to it too. What intrigues you? What do you like about the Janesville job, and nothing bad on the show? What do you like about that, and what do you like about the conference commissioner position?
The Janesville job, the results of what I'm doing, seeing the kids participate. You know, we just met as our 3 middle schools in Janesville met today, and we set up our girls swim and boys basketball schedules, and we were talking about how the kids benefit from sports, especially at the middle school level, where you often ask yourself, where would they be if we didn't have athletics?
Well, because high school is hard enough. Middle school is a turbulent time of adolescence.
Absolutely. It's if those kids weren't playing basketball, wrestling, or whatever, what would they be doing? You ask yourself that question.
Right.
And to just see those results. And last year I worked the clock, or I scored a couple of wrestling meets. And to just see how those kids are smiling from ear to ear, and they love every second of it. They're just happy to be there, happy to have something to do.
Right,
And
something positive to do.
and then as we go into the high schools, we see the positive results of what those middle schoolers were doing years before, and the success that they have. And sometimes it's not a lot of success, but there's more success than winning a ball game or winning a conference tournament.
Right, or
something like
wrestling
that.
match or anything.
Wrestling match, anything like that. The results of high school athletics and middle school athletics, building the character in the student, the leadership skills they develop, all of it is so rewarding in the long run. And that's what my job entails, is to make sure that they succeed in what they're doing.
From an from the organizational piece, from whether that be officials and different things like that too? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I am assigned, my job is to assign all of the non-conference varsity officials and all the sub-varsity officials. And then on a side note, with my commissioner's job, I'm also assigning for Beloit Memorial, Verona, and Middleton, all their sub-varsity officials as well. So that's another rewarding part of my commissioner's job and my school district of Janesville job, meeting and knowing and learning the friendships that I've developed with officials. And Ryan was just on here. Mm-hmm. I emailed him numerous times. He's worked for me so many times, and I've never met him face to face. So, I just got to meet Ryan. That was a pretty cool thing. Very rewarding to put a face with a name.
I think it is too, and I think about when I listen to you talk about the middle school piece, and while they're first of all they're participating and they're competing, and certainly everybody wants to win, but then after 5-10 minutes, half hour while someone else is doing it, they've probably forgot about the result already, and then you look at your combination, then you can obviously see in high school the progression of how the teaching and not just the dedication and commitment, but also the leadership and the discipline that's put on at the middle school level. When they come to high school and participate in that same sport or a different sport, you can kind of see that pretty easily, whether someone's a sore loser or whether there's a blame game at an official or whatever the case may be, or they just accept what it is. I look at so many things with sports, and when we have different conferences and opponents, the one sport that coaches never complain about their opponents is wrestling. Our wrestling coach, we go in with Stoughton, Milton, Wanakee, whomever, and they want to play the best. Where other sports, they're a little bit more playing chess as to how this works out and how it can benefit them, maybe from win-loss and not just the competition piece. And wrestling, they don't duck anything. They don't dodge anything. They try to take it all face forward. And not being a wrestling guy, I played football, basketball, baseball. I have so much respect for that piece.
Go watch a wrestling meet.
Right.
And
I wish more
what you
people
just
would.
said, more people need to get out and go watch a wrestling meet.
I can't go to the beginning of wrestling without having goosebumps.
Yep.
You know, and I joke with our wrestling coaches, and obviously I coach hoops, and there's always a little fun banter through the years of wrestling, and I joke about the lampshade that comes down, and with the light and flip some of the lights off and different things, all jovial. But wrestling is so great. I mean, I look at wrestling as sometimes there's potentially edgy kids that have an edge, might be slightly perceived as at risk. Now they've got a team format. They're not letting that family down.
No.
Because they got someone to count on them, and they're counting on somebody.
It is spot on, Jamie. And just watch a warm-up, a wrestling warm-up. You don't even have to watch the match. Just watch the warm-up, how that camaraderie is amongst that team. It's very impressive.
It's really tight. I think, and this isn't to downplay any other sport or anything like that, because I'm not going to bring in 3 sports that I play, but I think our toughest practices physically, and not just the mentally part, but physically too, are cross country, wrestling, and swim. And I give so much
None of them I would want to do.
And you can't talk them, you don't want to talk a kid into doing any of the 3. There's got to be a passion or an open mind to say, hey, think about trying it. And if they try it, they're probably not quitting, because the culture of those sports and that camaraderie and the climate within it, it's pretty tight and it's pretty cool. And it's not always relevant in so many different team sports where participation and playing is a little more subjective.
Right. It's right before Christmas, I went down to Beloit Memorial's swim invite they had. And 2 teams had to bail out because of COVID.
Right.
And you could just see I don't want to say the disappointment, because the kids are excited to be there, but they're, oh, well, so-and-so isn't here and so-and-so isn't here, so it's not going to be...
It's not the same.
Not the same. And they were so stoked to have a full group of teams, and just watching those kids when they're competing, the physical aspect of swimming is amazing. That's when you said swimming is just amazing. Wrestling.
Right.
Go watch it, how their bodies
It's contorting, and there's a few sweat beads throughout practice.
Yes. And then cross country, I probably would make it to the top of the hill, and that'd be about it for me.
And I have so much respect for it. And
myself.
And those coaches that have those, there's such a unique passion there too, and they're so good about it. And they really excel in those 3 sports specifically. Really excel in the relationship piece.
Yes. In Janesville, we host the Midwest Cross Country Classic every year. Teams from throughout the country.
Okay.
Texas, Illinois, we had Iowa. Probably, I want to say 5,000 kids there.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, down at the Blackhawk Golf Course every fall. And what a spectacular event. And to see the passion that the coaches, Jessica Lawton, Brandon Miles, put into that event is amazing. And it's pretty cool.
Those are 3 sports too, and there's some other sports too, so I don't want to, because volleyball sets up their own stuff. But you think about cross country, those coaches usually mow part of the lawn, they mark the course with paint, they put the flags up, whatever the case is. You get to wrestling, and depending upon what's happening, you usually have a wrestling practice room. You're dragging mats down, or the mats are in the back room storage. You're taping them up. Swimming, there's phy ed classes during the day. You're doing the lane lines. You're doing a lot of that stuff, because it would be really easy to get disgruntled and give the old why me type thing, and they just don't complain.
That's why coaches are special people, and the athletes.
They sure are.
They're just, it takes a special person to be a coach.
Oh, there's no question it does. I think about, for yourself, where would you be now? Let's say you're in a different job and we're working, I don't want to pick a company because I don't want to insult them. We're in a job that has nothing to do with sports or high school.
Oh.
We won't even know what we're missing, but gosh, if you know what you're missing, you might hate it.
Yeah. You would, if I wasn't in high school athletics right now, I don't know what I would do. Mm-hmm. How much of a passion that has been for me for almost 30 years now.
Right.
Is is remarkable. Just everything I've learned to become a better person, become a better man, what officials have taught me, what I've learned and the knowledge I've learned, and the amazing people that I've met, it is just top notch.
I would agree with you. You know, before you mentioned we got off on a little tangent. I got off on a little tangent about the middle school wrestling. What's unique about listening you talk before is you talked about the wrestling of the middle school from a kid standpoint and the high school from a kid standpoint, and then you talked about the both jobs for you and the adult component, and it's just totally separate. But the friendships from coaches to ADs to officials to whomever that way, and sometimes those friendships are close. Sometimes they're through email. Sometimes it's an occasional meeting, or it's a little closer at times, depending upon who's in your, municipality or local or something like that.
Right.
That's a pretty cool balance.
It's an amazing balance to just the rewards of that. Hey Ryan, I finally met you. That's cool. It is, and going to that, I was, you heard me speak to Ryan about, well, how many emails I send a day.
Right.
This is 2022 now, and the technological age is, I don't call 800 different people a day.
Right.
I send blast emails out, and I'm sending up to sometimes 30, 40 blast emails a day, and that's why I said you probably hate me. And I'm sure hopefully there's not too many officials that are going to watch this and say, oh, there's that guy. But that's the way to get out and communicate is via email.
It is.
And it's interesting, but it is nice to finally meet somebody face to face and then build that friendship upon that.
I would agree too. I want to ask you a couple of officiating questions in a minute here. Once again, our guest from Janesville Athletics is Chris Nicholson. Let's use officiating football or hoops. What do you hope for as an official when you walk into a school or you arrive at the school for an event? Say a varsity football or varsity basketball. Pick what you want. What are you hoping that the school provides in terms of hosting? You probably
Just
don't need
that,
a lot.
a host, someone to greet you, get you to your locker room so you can change, have your pregame. If you haven't met your partners yet, meet your partners, change, go out, do the game, and not be noticed. And it's tough sometimes, but there are nights when we're not noticed, and that's very nice.
How is it different from football to basketball?
Everybody in basketball is on top of you.
Okay.
The crowd is right there. Football, they're way, way far off the sideline. Fans, we're talking fans now. And
The spectator piece.
The spectator piece, the coaches, you can get away from them in football. Basketball, there's nowhere to go. You're there. And if you're not an effective communicator with a coach, that's going to get you in a little bit of trouble. But talking to the coaches is what you need to do. And in football, there's three of you, you're in the middle of the field, so most of the time you shouldn't be hearing what they're saying anyways. Basketball, they're right in your ear all the time, and the fans. If you go to a nice gym, big gym, it's nice, but not every school has top-notch facilities where you're able to get away from them.
Right, that's true too. Because I always wonder that, from our role here, you hope you do a good job because you want people to feel welcome from an officiating standpoint, and supported, and also moving freely to and from, and feeling safe at the same time, without any shenanigans or people in your ear or gnawing or chewing. There's not just how referees. You go back and you put your head in the book, you look your head at the film and different things to see how you did. I think schools don't always get a lot of feedback. They hear back the same thing when referees hear complaints or something negative for the most part.
The bad thing about officiating is, we can put this to officiating and my job, you hear the complaints. You don't ever hear the positives, rarely.
Right.
The WIAA has the Sports Report Plus, and we just got one of those for Janesville Parker from an official, we need to see more of that. Officials need to do a better part of communicating to the AD. Hey, top notch. Hey, maybe you could have somebody meet us at the door next time. We didn't know where we were going. Because
that's good feedback.
You travel to numerous schools
right.
all the time. You don't, last night I was at Mount Horeb, did
okay.
a boys game at Mount Horeb, and it's been a while since I've been in the school. Last time was for football, playoff football game, and I didn't know where the locker room was. Thank goodness that Colleen was there and
right.
to show us where the locker room was. I get a lot of negative feedback from officials in our conference that they got to find their own officials area, and that to improve upon that, I'd like the officials to let me know so we can say, hey, let's have somebody at the door to get the officials in.
Right.
And meet them at halftime or after the game, get them back to their locker room safely.
Well, it's such a big part of it. I think when people get so stuck in their own supporting of their one team, that sometimes people forget there's 3 teams out there.
That's correct.
And it's not really a home game for that, we'll say, that first or that third team ever. So there's a lot of maneuvering and figuring out at the same time, and a lot of unexpected intangibles throughout. So let's take hoops for an example. You transitioned probably in the beginning of your career from a 2-person to a 3-person. Had to learn different mechanics, different spacing, and different responsibilities that way. It seems to me that now, because there's a shortage, that more inexperienced officials are reffing at the varsity level much sooner than ever before. And before I go any further with that, I feel it's the same thing with coaching. It used to be you paid your dues at a certain level for 3, 5, 10, 15 years. So you had a little thicker skin, you had a little more maturity before you went to that varsity bench. Mm-hmm. But I think the combination of inexperienced officials with maybe inexperienced head coaches, that's not a great formula.
It isn't a very good formula at all, and we've seen such a decline in the number of officials in the state. And with my assigning responsibilities, just this year already, we've canceled 2 games because of lack of officials, and that's pretty sad.
Okay, yeah, there's no question. And you think about in the fall, we had to move things around, and maybe the worst for us was you had to play on a Saturday instead of a Friday.
Yep.
Oh, big deal.
Basketball, it's a little hard to do, because you got so many games in that period of time. But yeah, we've done it twice this year so far, and I had to move. Actually 3 times now, because I just did one in Middleton to a girls' game in Middleton. We had to move to the day previous, a Monday instead of a Tuesday, because there's no officials, and people got to remember, no officials, no games.
Right. Well, there's no question. So think about there's young officials and they're doing JV or JV2 or 8th grade or something like that. How important is a mentoring piece of officials?
Very important. My officials association, we always talk about, if you get to a game in early, watch what the JV or the freshman officials doing, give them some pointers to encourage them, and hopefully that they'll take that lesson and learn it.
And some good things at the same time too.
Absolutely. Some positives and some negatives of what they could do to be better. And when I started, I wish I had somebody to do that for me.
Right.
I was thrown to a pack of wolves and said, here you go. Not the easiest thing in the world.
No, it really isn't. I think about myself when I started coaching high school as a varsity coach. I was a young hothead. And I can remember being in one of my first games, and my suit coat went up about 15 rows. And there's a guy who's a good friend today, Jim Jones, who was the coach at Milwaukee Hamilton, and who did a lot of the games on TV on the broadcast. He was coaching at Milwaukee Hamilton at the time. We were out in Oconomowoc. And I didn't really know him well. When I went to school in high school, I knew him as a coach, but he went up about 10 or 15 rows I saw in the film, and he came back down and put my suit coat back on and tapped me on the shoulder and went on his way to the locker room to get ready. And I feel like that's the first day of a lifelong friendship. So from 1998 until right now, I would consider him to be one of my best friends.
Very good.
Just starting from an irrational, impulsive kid or young coach, and then someone just kind of gives you a tap on the shoulder and goes up and gets the coat for you, and whatever the case was. But you need those mentors. He's been a great mentor for me. I hope I've retaliated a little bit in his direction in terms of been helpful, but I can only speak on the part he's given such a groundedness and such an experienced viewpoint. Just the same way it's important for officials, it's missing in the coaching world too.
Yep, it is. Few names I was thinking about this on the way up here. Everybody knows the late Lou Pitt, the late Ken Kirby.
Yep.
Another one from this area, Jim Minogue.
Yeah.
All three of them taught me so much, and I've got Ken Kirby's autographed Major League when he went in, worked the majors during the strike.
Okay.
His autographed card, and he always said, "You're going to be a good official." And I was thinking, gonna be, because I thought, geez, I was on top of the world.
I knew everything.
I knew everything. Well, you look back on just those few words that he ever said to me, with an encouragement, it means a lot.
Well, it can, because when it's coming from people that you respect, it's so much more meaningful.
It is. Commissioner's job, you ask for feedback. Okay, here's how you can do it better, or here's what we need to do. I respect those leaders and the ADs at the schools.
So that people not knowing the roles, there's probably, in the role of ADs, there's occasionally egos that are a little high and mighty at times.
Yes.
But I think as you get older and you keep the perspective, or you regain the correct perspective, when people are collegial to each other, a hell of a lot more gets done, and gets done in such a more positive way.
It's so much more positive and more efficient, more effective.
And pleasant.
For everybody involved.
Right, and pleasant.
Yes.
So last few words here as we get ready to wrap the show up, in terms of your feeling on, it could be things that are great in Janesville, it could be for the community, it could be the Big A commissioner piece, that anything that revolves high school sports. Give me a little, let's end the show with a few thoughts from you.
Big 8 commissioner. All the positives that have come out of what we're dealing with COVID right now. We've got the kids that are participating in athletics and truly enjoying it. We couldn't have, the leadership that we've had from the administration, ADs to the parents, officials that are braving going into the games wearing masks. In Dane County, you're wearing a mask inside, and the kids are being able to participate, and that's the most rewarding, anything I could think of, the most pleasant and rewarding part of that commissioner's job.
Okay.
And you put all the negatives aside, there's a lot of positives that we never hear about.
There sure are. There's no question about
Yes.
that. And we have to focus on those positives. So I'd say this year, that's a great perspective that you have, and keeping the student athletes at the forefront of education-based athletics isn't always the easiest, but it certainly is important, because that's one of the positives, and that's why we're in the positions we're in, for the benefit of the kids.
Yes.
We don't deal with adults. We deal with the byproduct of kids is sometimes adults type thing, as much as possible. Once again, our guest, Chris Nicholson from Janesville Athletics, as well as the commish of the Big A Conference. This concludes another edition of Sports Talk. Until next time, keep talking sports. Chris, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.